Welcome back to another episode of Embracing Magic with me, Steph, and my lovely co-hosts, Lizzy and Toni. Today's episode is the second round of the Witch's Bookshelf. We're really excited to bring this one to you because I know lots of you have been asking for another episode. But before we get started, I just want to say a huge thank you for sticking around and supporting us here on YouTube. We have now reached 5,000 subscribers, which is crazy. And we also have been a podcast for a year, which is
that's wild.
Insane.
That's mad.
Yes. Yeah, so we're so grateful to you all for sticking around and supporting us. And yeah, thank you so much. And I think we're going to dive straight into Lizzy's books. Lizzy books. So you've got lovely Sharon Blackie. Hagitude.
Yes, so I am sandwiching together two Sharon Blackie books, but I don't have one of them with me because I lent it to someone. I don't know who I lent it to. But what I thought I'd do is I brought along the Sharon Blackie amazing The Rooted Woman Oracle deck, which is incredible. So I'm doing basically, if women rose rooted, no, is that right? Have I said that right? Yeah. If women rose rooted, it's really hard to say, and Hagitude. Oh, Sharon Blackie. So have you read Sharon Blackie?
No.
You've read
I think I've got a couple of her books though, but I haven't actually dived into them yet because I'm a bit of a book hoarder
and then go through. She's just amazing.
You're a book hoarder. What the hell am I?
No. I don't know what another word is past that. But.
She narrates the If Women Rose Rooted on Audible as well. She's got a lovely voice.
Oh, she's amazing. So Sharon Blackie, I Googled where she's from as well. She's from County Durham. And her dad's Scottish and mum is English. But Sharon Blackie is amazing because she is this incredible mixture of psychology, mythology, ecology, like everything she talks about is all rolled into one. So If Women Rose Rooted for me was just an incredible book. And it came at a point in my life where I was really the beginning of my witchcraft journey. And
maybe you should put the Hagitude book down because it's confusing.
The wrong one. I'll do this. This is the Oracle deck that's connected to If Women Rose Rooted. But what's so amazing about Sharon Blackie's books is it's that like call of the wild woman. She really speaks to those women who like hear the call and essentially they want to discover who they really are, like who they genuinely are, their real passions, their real spiritual power. And she uses all these incredible Celtic myths, from English myths to Welsh to Scottish, Irish, and she blends them all together. And then it all sort of relates to the feminine psyche. So that's why she says she's psychology, mythology, and ecology all kind of rolled into one.
Wow.
So she's just incredible. And she talks about the amazing myths that have been forgotten. And one of the ones she talks about, which I love, and actually I subscribe, I think everyone should, to her like mail list. So I get emails from her. So she'll do like a blog and she emails you. So I've just got one here because one of the ones she talks about in If Women Rose Rooted is that at one time, basically women were like keepers of sacred wells all across Ireland, Wales, Scotland, England, keeper of these sacred wells. And she talks about how the idea was that there were these beautiful well maidens and they looked after the wells and they would give you sustenance. If you were like a weary traveller, they would give you food from like a golden chalice and water and all sorts of things. And there's a famous poem that she talks about, the Eludication, where it's really sad. There's this king and he makes all his men rape and pillage all the well maidens and the well maidens disappeared down the wells. And then that's when they say that the wells then were like abandoned and discarded. And actually they're everywhere.
You're on a bit of a well hunt.
I'm on a well hunt.
Because we went to one recently,
yes,
St. Anne's Hill in Chertsey.
Yes.
And found one of them.
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
Yeah, but sadly it's not really functioning well anymore,
It's not a well anymore. It would have been a functioning well with sacred waters. And it was connected to a monastery. I think they would talk about that. It was connected to a monastery. But they're all forgotten, all these beautiful wells.
We've got a well in Hastings.
Oh, have you?
A big one, yeah.
Is
Oh,
it
wow.
forgotten?
They've put a grate over it so that people don't fall in.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, yeah.
Fall in and die.
That would be me.
We're like, come to me, well maidens.
And then she basically, the reason why she talks about it is she talks about how once upon a time that it was women who provided for the land. They were connected to the land, and we've completely forgotten it. And it's all these myths and legends were just discarded and forgotten. So she starts, if women rose rooted, talking about that, about remember who you are, remember where you came from, that you are part of the land. And it's just amazing. And it is all about hearing that wild call. So it was actually a book that was a bit of a game changer for me in my current life.
She left her partner, didn't she? Left her marriage.
Yes.
Excuse me. Steph made me a pesto sandwich before this. It's coming back. It's replaying on me. Because she's lived in loads of places. Like she lived in Scotland. I think she lived in Lewis near me. Did she live on the Isle of Man or something like that? She lived on
the Isle of Man, and she lived on the
Orkney. Yeah,
Islands?
I think it might have been Orkney. Yeah,
yeah, Orkney Islands.
But I feel like her book is all about listening to that inner voice, and she just knew that she wasn't happy in that relationship anymore, and she listened to that inner voice and she left, and she kind of made this beautiful quiet life for herself.
So beautiful.
But the story that I really like from that book is the Selkie one.
Oh yeah.
And I won't be able to recite it really well, but she kind of like, as a Selkie, was lured into a romantic relationship with a man, and she had to take off her Selkie suit, which made her be able to live under the sea. And they sort of fell in love, and then he became possessive over her, and he like hid her suit from her so she couldn't go back to her family. And the whole story is about her longing to go back to the sea and to the people that she loves, and being trapped. And I felt like it was like an analogy for being trapped in a sort of like domestic household, as like a wife away from your, like back in the day, you were like property, and you would lose your family name, and you'd go and live with your husband and their family, and you'd have to almost like stop seeing your own family. And it kind of made me think about that, and how that longing to be reconnected with your roots was like really painful. It's
really
story
painful
to listen to.
You're spot on. It's exactly that. It's those beautiful mythology tales that connect into like modern day,
almost like cautionary tales.
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly right. And it's just such a beautiful way, and it's so deep. It's sort of the way she writes and describes things connects you to this like deeper part of yourself. So she understands where, I think for women, where she's talking to you inside. It's really, so amazing. And then I just thought I'd read this. This is just on her her emails that she sends. So she sends a quote. I'll just try and read a little bit of it. If the foundation stories of our culture show women as weak and inferior, then however much we rail against it, we will be treated as if we are weak and inferior. Our voices will have no traction. But if the mythology and history of our culture includes women who are wise, women who are powerful and strong, it opens up a space for women to live up to these stories, to become wise and powerful and strong, to be taken seriously, and to have our voices heard.
Go on with the patriarchy.
So that's if women rose rooted, and then following on. Oh. Falls like dominoes.
Steph's getting overexcited and she's prepping her book.
I love it. And then this book is absolutely amazing. This is Hagitude. Incredible. So for those who are entering perimenopause or in the menopause, this book is just beautiful. It's about reclaiming the second half of your life instead of seeing it as, well,
I'm on the way out.
I'm on the way out now. I'm shuffling off this mortal coil. This is about owning your power and all your wisdom and all that knowledge and everything you've learned and your intuition. It's just such an incredible book. And again, using mythology and psychology. And just some of the chapters, like she has the alchemy of menopause, so just going through that, and someday your witch will come, which I love.
Someday your witch will come.
And just incredible. There's the wise woman, and then she'll go through like Baba Yaga and talks about all sorts of things.
love Baba Yaga.
I love Baba Yaga. She's incredible. So this book really is about, reclaiming the second half of your life. And this quote I saw, I just quickly read. It says, "I think as women grow older that we miss mystery, we miss magic. Not the kind of magic that stems from magical thinking, but the magic that comes from wonder. The wonder of experiencing the world is still brimming with possibility, in spite of the fact that certain life paths and choices disintegrate before our eyes as we age. At 60 years old, my fleeting and not especially original childhood dream of becoming an astronaut is clearly no longer an option. But," and I love this.
We might have to leave planet Earth, so
Yeah, we might
it's possible.
actually. But she says, "We always have the capacity to reinvent ourselves right to the end. This world will always be disposed to transform us to beyond our wildest dreams, not in the outer sense, collecting accolades, but inside ourselves as we burn away all the dross and come to embody that person we were always meant to be."
I just love her.
She's
great.
just awesome.
And I think in
awesome.
society, like the hag has always been seen as the most disposable archetype, right?
Completely.
And that still filters down, you know, the moment that women start to see lines on their face, they're like, oh, I'm being seen as useless in the world again.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's all about it says reimagining the second half of life, doesn't it? It's about reprogramming that way of thinking.
Completely. And it's also about like not that feeling of just, I'll just give up.
Yeah.
So actually, you're entering into the best years of your life.
The wisdom years.
The wisdom years.
You can be that spooky bitch that's like got all those cats and, you know, the kids next door are afraid of. The ball goes over the fence and you're like, get out my land.
So it's just really, she's really inspiring. She's fiercely intelligent and just writes in this way that I think really speaks to like that deeper wild woman in all of us. I cannot recommend her enough. If Women Rose Rooted, Hagitude, and this is the incredible Oracle deck, which is based off these two books that you can use.
Which one do you prefer out of the two books?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you know what? I think if Women Rose Rooted, because it had such an impact on me, I think. It was like the turning point.
How did it have an impact on you?
I think it made me realise that I needed to really step into my authentic self and not be so afraid of it. To be a badass bitch.
Because that leads on to my book.
Yes!
Oh, I see what she did there.
Yeah, she did very well.
She segued really well.
I didn't plan that, but it's a good segue. So my book is Weave the Liminal by Laura Tempest Zakroff, or Zakroff. Hopefully I've said your name correctly. Living Modern Traditional Witchcraft. And what I really, really loved about this book was basically the messaging behind creating your own path as a witch and staying true to your own authenticity. And whatever that looks like to you is authentic, basically. So yeah, I really enjoyed the messaging and the kind of basically the pull to really create something that's your own. And also it talks a lot about traditional what's it called? Modern traditional witchcraft, which is blending the kind of, I mean, I don't really want to use the word ancient, but traditional ways, I suppose, with obviously we live in a modern world. So we're not going to have, not authentic, but we're not going to be practicing in the same way that someone was 100 years ago or 200 years ago, because we live in a different world now.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots in here about crafting your own path. You've read this book as well. It's one of your top
resources,
books. I think it's really actually a really good resource for someone that's just starting out.
Yeah.
As a witch, or you know, finding your path.
Don't listen to it on Audible though, because it's a horrible narrator. You know, sometimes they have like certain voices and you're just like,
it doesn't resonate with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't resonate.
No, I really struggle with Audible actually. I much prefer to read, but then I also struggle with reading, so I just don't have much hope in life. Just because I'm one of those readers that sometimes I have to read a page like 4 or 5 times for it to go into my brain. Excellent book. Definitely read it. I'm just going to read you one bit in the book, which is about questioning authenticity, which I really resonated with. I think it's best that we get the authenticity debate out of the way. Wondering where one falls on someone else's real witchcraft measuring stick causes unnecessary stress. Their stick doesn't matter. Yours does. To be authentic means to be real, genuine, verified, representing one's true nature or beliefs, to be true to oneself. Notice the lack of the oldest or the most cool or having the greatest number of altar decorations there. Read again the last 5 words of the definition. Authenticity is being true to oneself in what one does. That means the search for authenticity is a quest to find what's real, what works, and what is true for that specific person.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. And an important lesson, I think, for everyone, because we're always comparing ourselves.
Endless.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like this. I felt really seen in this book because I was just like, I often question. I mean, I think a lot of it is to do with the witch wound, obviously, but I often question myself and imposter syndrome and all of those things come up, and question whether, like, when I'm doing divination, whether I am getting messages or.
Or it's just psychosis.
Yeah, essentially. Like there's a lot of questioning ourselves, and I just think that is just so important to know that your witchcraft path is your own, and whatever that looks like,
love that
is true to you.
Really lovely.
We also sort of, you and I have kind of like simultaneously been going through a bit of a shift with our look as well, haven't we? Because I think that we fell into this idea that we had to be wearing black all the time and, be wearing this almost like uniform to be seen as part of a community. And I think both of us sort of like, we didn't even talk about it, but we just sort of started implementing a bit of colour again and just being like, I don't know why we feel like we have to look a certain way or act a certain way or like have our altar look a certain way in order to be accepted. When actually, if you're doing the practice and it's genuine, then that's what authenticity is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real to you.
Yeah, I went through the thing of like, why am I wearing all of these things when I have this whole wardrobe full of clothes that I still love? But I wasn't even doing it consciously. It was like, it was unconsciously. But also going back to what you said about, your altar looking a certain way and things like that. You often see a lot of the time all of these like amazingly beautiful altars.
Yeah.
Which, like, if that's what you want to do, great, that looks beautiful. But for me, my altar looks a bit messy and a bit raw, and there's things everywhere, and I've got loads of random trinkets and stuff that means something to me, or jars of water that I've collected from the ocean and like sand, and that is.
But that's a working altar.
Yeah. Whereas sometimes I think that people have to do things for show.
Yeah.
But obviously, if that's. There's a fine line between, if you're aware of that you're doing it for show, or, because, a lot of people, you want things to look pretty for social media, don't you?
Or promotion,
promotion,
we're stuck in a world where we have to be promoting our work all the time. And actually, annoyingly, aesthetic is important. But I remember like even leading that altar workshop for the Coven and being like, oh man, I really hope people don't like copy, because it's so personal, isn't it? And I was like, I don't want them to see my altar and be like, it has to look like that.
Yeah.
So there is also the downside to sharing what your sacred space looks like. But it's real.
Yeah.
Mine's covered in dust. Like every day I'm like, I should clear it all off and dust it.
But yeah, this is it. And I think when you're first starting out, I think it's easy to see all of these beautiful spaces and feel like yours needs to be like that.
Yeah.
Or your practice has to look like that.
Yeah,
to be an authentic witch. And actually, no. Throw it all away. Whatever your altar looks like, however you dress, however you know, whatever bits of witchcraft that you're most interested in.
Exactly.
You know, you can pull lots of, like, I'm pulling from all sorts of areas that I feel really drawn to now, you know? So, yeah. Anyway, going off on a bit of a tangent there, but...
Sold. I'm having one. I'll have
That's
6.
what
Do you not have it yet?
I don't have it.
That's
Sold.
what I got out of this book, is really looking to create your own path in a way that...
And that's
It's truly
really
yours.
reassuring to, I'm sure, other witches out there who are like, oh, I don't have to have it.
Yeah.
So set. It's lovely.
What did you think of this book?
I really liked it. That's why it's part of my, you know, when people are asking for starter resources, it was one of the top. It was like that, the Danielle Dulski one, you know, the Holy Wild.
Holy Wild.
Spell in the Wind. I can't remember. The Scottish Witchcraft one. For me, those are all like excellent starting points. But yeah, I totally echo your sentiment on the authenticity part of it.
Yeah, they're like crafting your own path.
And I think, again, it's quite an accessible read as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you pick up these books and like they're really like, I mean, your first one was that you shared was Caliban and the Witch, and that's really
dense.
hefty book, and that's quite an accessible
This
one.
is a Steph book.
No, I don't mean it like that. I just mean like you could pick it up and read a chapter and put it down and come back to it, you know.
Whereas you read a sentence in Calaban, you go,
What?
oh, God,
I forgot already.
I honestly don't think I could be able to actually read it. I think it would take me like a year.
Yeah.
I think that's where Audible comes in really handy, though, because I read physical books and I listen to Audible because, like you, I read multiple books at the same time, and I spend a lot of time walking my dog. And for me, there's something about walking and being able to process information. So I just find it a lot easier to kind of like have an audiobook on while I'm walking my dog and actually really pay attention to what's happening in it. Because otherwise, when you're reading the book, your mind can kind of like
Disappear.
wander.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I think you said was happening to you.
I feel like I do that with Audible too.
Do you?
Yeah.
But maybe you have to be doing it while you're doing something else. Like, I don't know.
like going for a
Maybe
walk.
like going for a walk.
Like going for a walk or like cleaning the house.
Try this.
You know? Because cleaning's quite monotonous as well, isn't it? You know what you're doing. You don't need to think about it. Excuse me, it's up pesto again.
You're welcome.
It was delicious. But, you can kind of clean and you can listen and your brain's not in the cleaning. So I don't know, maybe you just need to find your thing. Because I also find reading in the bath really handy, because if I try and read before bed, I just fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Great book, though.
Brilliant.
Excellent book.
Right. Weave the liminal.
Okay, so my first book is a Rebecca Campbell book, which she's probably most well known for Rise Sister Rise, which came out ages ago. It came out a really long time ago. I feel like I might have read that during COVID or something, or maybe a little bit before. I can't remember. Maybe COVID. And also known for the Rose Oracle, which do you have?
I have that. I love it.
Yeah,
I think
it's
you may
interesting.
have mentioned it a few times.
I've never really connected with her imagery because I always felt like it came across as light work. Lots of pastel colours. It's quite romantic, like watercolour almost.
Very dreamy.
Yeah, very dreamy. And I'm definitely more of a tarot person than an oracle person. But I picked up this book, which is called Your Soul Had a Dream, Your Life Is It, which is quite a simple cover for her, really.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know, I'm like showing that. Actually, even though I think she does describe herself as a light worker, this talks a lot about embracing your shadows, which is really interesting. I'll read the back of the cover. It says, this book about... Let's try again. This is a book about rebirth, which means it's also about death. For rebirth isn't possible without it. This is a book about healing, which means it's also about feeling. For healing isn't possible without it. This is a book about finding yourself, which means it's also about losing yourself. For finding yourself isn't possible without it. This is a book about new beginnings, which means it's also about endings. For new beginnings aren't possible without them.
Amazing.
Which I think is quite profound, really. And I guess it's kind of an invitation to step into your soul journey, I guess. It's kind of like a blueprint for lessons, for experiences, and like a purpose built on our lifetime. So I think the whole premise of the book is a bit like your destiny is already completely set out for you, and it's just about bringing yourself back to that path. Or like we get lost along the way. And she talks a lot about having some really visceral experiences. Like I think one of the ones that I can remember is that she was in a sort of almost like retreat situation, and she explained about getting touched by the divine. She might not have used that wording, but she kind of she experiences a spiritual awakening, I guess. And you know, she's kind of like almost like talking in tongues, and you know, she asked the group if she's held in this space, and the person who's facilitating says, "You are held by us," and then she starts like moving in this almost like twirling kind of way, and has this absolutely otherworldly experience. And when she comes out of it, the facilitator's like, "We've just experienced something really like once in a lifetime, and we now need to give her space to integrate what happened." And I think that she kind of was reconnected with the whole of her lineage and the mothers and the grandmothers that came before her, you know, the land. And it's quite profound listening to her talk about it. But she talks a lot about embracing your grief and your trauma and your shadows and the equilibrium of existing between all of those things, and how that helps you on your path. So it's kind of like a combination of like, sorry, I'm looking at my notes because I forget about, I read books so quickly that I forget about them. About soul inquiries. So there are like journal prompts in here as well, which are actually really good. They're not just like normal, like, how are you feeling today? Or what would you like to release today? They're actually really helpful soul inquiries. And there's a QR code in the front, which has, which links you to these amazing playlists as well.
Wow.
So it's quite sensory. And she encourages like a lot of sort of like deep reflection, asking us to consider what parts of our life feel like kind of like divinely led. So this is probably a really strange book for me, but like, because she's not really someone that I would generally listen to. I'm much more drawn to ceremony work, but I feel like this steps a lot into that. So I would say this book, sort of like the key themes and explorations are like soul alignment. So learning to trust that inner calling that you have, or that inner knowing. Having proper sacred pauses, so like honoring those moments of stillness, because we live in a society that's just like constantly like, you need to be doing. You haven't had a good day if you haven't achieved something. And this is about like sitting with the stillness and being okay in it and not rushing through it. It's about intuition and guidance, and it's about healing past lives. So anyway, I think it's a really beautiful book.
Sounds awesome.
I don't think it's that old. I picked this up in Waterstones, which I don't normally go to, and it just spoke to me. So
amazing.
And also, if you like Audible, then she narrates this book, and she also has
She's got a lovely
Australian soft voice.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Your soul had a dream. Your life is it.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Great.
It says how to be held by life when it feels like everything is falling apart.
Oh, I
wonder why I felt like I wanted to read that.
I was very drawn to this book.
It sounds kind of dark.
But I was going to say, like you say, for you, because her oracle decks are so romantic.
Yeah,
it is amazing that you've been drawn to her.
Well, there's a lot of like ceremony in the way that she speaks, the way what she talks about. And I have actually bought one of her decks. I bought the Sacred Stones one.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. Is that recently?
Fairly recently. I would say I've had them a couple of months. But I definitely connect with like old stones. Like I like old ruins, and you know, there's a romanticism for me around like those old stacked walls as well, you know, like the ones that had like one rock on one rock. You know, when I went up to spend Christmas with my sister in Cumbria, they have a lot of those old walls. And you know, when Tom and I went to Mykonos last year, all of the land is divided up by walls that have been hand built and have stood for thousands of years. It's wild. And you know, the ones in Cumbria are like all covered in moss and are kind of falling down, and I just really like stone circles, and ruins basically.
Yeah.
And so the deck kind of spoke to me a bit. It's still a little bit watercolor and romantic for my liking, but the sentiment behind it speaks to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I really want that deck. I've looked at it.
it's lovely. Out of all of her decks, I think that it's the best one in my opinion. For me anyway.
Amazon shopping basket.
I know. I feel like we should have like a storefront.
I'm like, I want this one.
No, I'm not sure that would be very helpful. Maybe don't buy from Amazon.
Yeah, don't buy from Amazon.
Buy from an independent bookshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Well, that's amazing. I'm going to get that. Funny enough, leading on from talking about stones.
A lot of segues in this
Segues. So my next book is called Wild Magick by Danu Forrest. And this is like an immersive guide to Celtic magic. So it goes through in all the different sort of Celtic myths and mythologies. A lot of myths and mythologies I quite like at the moment. And it also goes through the different elements. So it goes through earth, fire, water. So she talks about all the different elements in Celtic mythology as well. And again, it's quite beautifully written. A lot of it is quite lyrical. There are lots of poems in it, lots of songs. She talks. And again, this is quite, what I would say is it's quite you can pick this up and put this down. You could read a chapter and put it down. It's quite easy to read. And it's in kind of bite-sized chunks, each chapter, which is really, really helpful. But it talks about like connecting with the fae folk and one bit in it that I love, of course, is connecting to dragons.
Is it Welsh?
There's Welsh. There is everything: Welsh, Scottish, Irish.
Oh, okay.
A bit of everything. And she talks you through it. She'll say, so now this is about Scottish myth. This is now an Irish myth. And she goes through it all. But it's just a really lovely, if you're really drawn to Celtic practices, Celtic mythology and element work, this is an amazing book to use. And again, she has lots of practical elements like spells and rituals, ceremonies, things like that. So it's just really lovely. And actually, I will say this book really inspired me because I love being, it's really inspired. I guess part of me now feels like a bit of an earth witch. I do feel quite like a bit of an earth witch. Like I always want to be outside, always want to be in the woods. And this book really, really inspired me because she talks about connecting with trees and tree magic and all things like that.
You're definitely a tree witch.
Definitely a tree witch.
You're always at the base of a tree somewhere doing a meditation, aren't you?
Always at the base of a tree or hugging one or like, I do feel, and this book really inspired me because she talks about all the different trees, all their different magic elements, how to work with them. So it's just a really, really beautiful book. And she also talks about, because I do like me dragons as well, that mapping dragon lines, like ley lines. Cool.
That's really cool.
Really cool. So she talks about how, like, there's a bit here, it's called the Dragon Path Journey. Anyone interested in dragons? But she talks about how actually ley lines were seen as dragon lines. Oh. And they're based from Glastonbury Tor. Delicious. So I absolutely loved it. And I found this really, really inspiring. So I think anybody who is really interested in Celtic mythology and working with the elements, this is an amazing book to use. And again, it's a really good one just to pick up and read, put down. You don't have to, it's not Caliban and the Witch. I highly recommend that.
What's really interesting about dragons is they exist in so many ancient texts, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And they're spoken about all over the world in really ancient texts. And it really makes you wonder
where they are.
What's going on? Well, I've done a bit of, we'll go off on a topic here, but basically I was looking the other day and they look like they hail from, I'm going to say this wrong, Mesopotamian.
Yeah.
So they originate from there first.
What's that?
Mesopotamia is... it's basically a sort of a little loop of Turkey, Syria, Iran, Iraq in this little loop in there. And in there was these Mesopotamians, and that apparently is where the first mention of dragons comes from. And then, like you say, it's all across the world, and it has featured in Celtic mythology and and all across the globe.
So
So
interesting.
it's very interesting. But yeah, so if you're interested in dragons, there's also a section in here about that as well. Thank you and good night.
Well, I wasn't sure if I was going to bring this book today, but as soon as you've talked about Celtic folk traditions, I mentioned this book in one of our previous podcasts. It's called The Cauldron and the Drum by Rhonda McCrimmon. And we spoke a little bit about the three cauldrons. Now, since then, I had an amazing conversation with a lovely Irish witch, Willow. Shout out to Willow. And we've sort of discussed the three cauldrons and what they actually are in terms of Ireland and where the poem The Three Cauldrons originates from. And so from what I understand it is actually not a energy center system at all within the body. The poem, and actually Willow kindly sent me the original text as her partner, I think worked in a college or university. So I've seen the actual original scripts, like the old. Obviously, I can't read any of it because it's in ancient Irish. But they also sent me a what's it called? Interpreted version of it. So I've read the original poem, and it really is more of a kind of sort of more about the way that we live life rather than an energy center system. So the poem describes that we have three inner cauldrons, doesn't specify where those cauldrons are within the body, doesn't describe them as energy centers at all. So really anything beyond that is a modern constructed thing. So when it's described as an ancient Celtic energy center system, that is kind of incorrect. It's in terms of it really is
someone's interpretation.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's an interpretation. So it's not that it's incorrect, because obviously everyone's interpretation is valid, right?
It's a poem, isn't it?
But it's a poem, and obviously that's the end of that. It's just the poem. And there's no more text beyond that describe how to work with the three cauldrons or the energy centers or anything like that.
Wow.
From the person that actually originally wrote it. So,
but there are lots of, like, not to cut you off, sorry, but there are lots of other cultures around the world that have something similar. Not maybe three cauldrons, but like you and I spoke about. I'm doing this course with this Arctic Siberian amazing singer called Snow Raven, and they use universe, so they say lower universe.
Yeah, so there's lots of different energy center systems that describe three vessels within the body.
So it could have been that they read the poem and they drew their own interpretation based on what other people were doing around the world, maybe.
Possibly, yeah. And you're probably exactly right there. But I think from an Irish perspective, from talking to lovely Willow, is that in Ireland, there was nothing described as any sort of energy centre system, and it's just not something that they work with. And there's something that Willow put me onto called the Irish Pagan School, and the lovely chap there describes it a little bit better on to how it could be interpreted in terms of from an Irish perspective, basically. However, I mean, I feel like if you want to work with it as an energy centre system, you could do that. But I think it's just the case of,
knowing its origin.
Yeah,
understanding its origin.
Understanding its origin and the roots of the poem, and then coming to your own conclusion on how you want to work with it. But I think anything describing it as an ancient energy centre system it's not really the right thing.
Is that how it's described?
So it is kind of described like that in this book,
right.
Unfortunately. but I did really enjoy it as a read, you know. And
I really like Rhonda as well.
yeah, I like Rhonda too, and I really enjoy the concept of the Cauldrons, and I like the idea behind it, but I think it really is. It's about from what I've now learnt further into it, is that it's about the way that we fill each of our cauldrons up, but not working with them as energy centers. It's almost like they're mythological cauldrons.
Yeah, love
basically. That. And we're filling up our cauldron of warming with health, nourishment, feeding our bodies and stuff, and that's kind of like our vitality. And then the center cauldron is all about our emotional connection and our joy, and sometimes we experience sorrows within life, and the cauldron alters. Like our cauldrons are always altering, basically.
Yeah.
And
so you're honing in on that.
Yeah, like honing in on and the cauldron as like a. It's really hard to describe.
It's almost like when. Like one cauldron might be emptying,
yeah,
and the other one's full,
and you're kind of honing into those different areas, and then
chocolate
obviously
fountain.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking. Oh yeah, delish.
And then obviously your cauldron of wisdom holds all of your knowledge, and your intuition and all of those things. But yeah, so it's really interesting, really learning properly about it.
What was the poem called?
It's called The Cauldrons of Poesy.
Cauldrons of Poesy.
I can't remember it's an ancient poem, but it can't really be described as an ancient energy center system, I don't think. But I mean, yeah, I found the book really interesting, and I think the problem is that the concept of it is, it's great, but I think you can't really describe it as an energy center system.
It's
really.
almost like she. Lovely. Is it
but Rhonda? I think a lot of
she's Scottish as well, isn't she?
Scottish.
Yeah, but I think that there's quite a few different areas that describe it as that. So it's kind of, I think if you didn't know, then you would. Yeah, if I wasn't told by Willow, then I wouldn't have been like, oh.
But you also kind of said, like, there's the truth that it was a poem that wasn't about energy systems, and then there's also resonating with it as being energy systems. So it's still okay for people to do that if they want to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just
useful.
being aware of, where it originated from and the roots of it, and understanding that it isn't an ancient practice. This as a whole is a lot newer, basically.
Yeah.
If that's the way that you want to practice it, then, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Not at all, yeah.
But
It's
I did really enjoy the book, and I did get a lot out of it. And it did really resonate with me at the time. So yeah, I think also Willow did mention that there's that Celtic and shamanism are two separate things as well. So that was an interesting conversation, which I haven't yet really explored as well. So it seems like Celtic shamanism is a newer thing, a bit like Wicca.
Right, okay, gotcha.
I think you have shamans for anywhere in the world.
Yeah, but I think both.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but I think that's fine. We don't all have to think the same thing. Like, I think we've got shamans that come from, I think people are just naturally shamans. Like that is a way of life. It doesn't really matter whether you're Celtic Irish, Celtic Scottish, or English, or I don't know, from fucking Appalachian Mountains. I think.
I see what you mean. I hadn't quite delved into.
I think the point that she was kind of making is that be careful of people that call themselves Celtic shamans, right? Yeah,
from what I understand, but yeah, it's an interesting thing to explore.
Yeah, fascinating.
I think. But yeah,
but I do like old Ronnie.
Yeah, old Ronnie.
She, I think that her and her partner make drums and like shamanic rattles and stuff like that. And
love.
I did one of her. She did like a kind of 2-hour course or something, and I think it was all about the crone and the midwinter season. And I really enjoyed it, and it had loads of really nice women in it as well. Like, it was just a nice thing to do. And I really love the content that she puts out. I think it's really connecting. you know, so.
And also that, like we were talking about, like weaving your own path, that maybe she was inspired by the poem and then this has now led her into weaving this idea.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to find out more.
I think,
it would
definitely.
be.
I think the information was probably passed down to her.
Yeah,
but
there you
perhaps
go.
it's just because the poem is so ancient, it's probably just not as an ancient practice.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I did really.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what I mean?
Nice book, nice system, not energetic. Those are the cliff notes. Okay. I'm always doing that, always boshing. So my second book is Rituals for Life by Isla Mcleod. I love Isla so much. This woman is probably my biggest inspiration in terms of like ceremony work. And she actually married my older sister and my brother-in-law. And they had this really beautiful ceremony that was about embracing the quarters, and, you know, about bringing water from each side of the family and making a kind of like wellspring together.
Love.
Which they got their children to like put into as well. So I think I don't know if they added water or petals. I don't remember. It was a while ago. But it was so beautiful. And she had her drum and she kind of like sang my sister in, and she's just amazing. Like she also has a newsletter that I would definitely like recommend following, because she just is a wonderful person. And the book, I guess the heart of the book is all about the power of ritual to heal, to ground, and to reconnect us with ourselves and with nature. And she offers kind of like a wide range of rituals. So they might be like seasonal rituals, or they might be like daily rituals or threshold rituals like marriage or funerals or, I don't know, adoption or whatever. And then there's more kind of like connection rituals, which are about strengthening the bond with ancestors or the spirit guides and with the elements. And also sacred space work and altar work. I'll be honest and say that from a visual point of view, this is not very me. I know it sounds silly. I love it. Because you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover. Let me see if I can show you what. It's just, again, kind of like quite watercolory, and I should be showing you guys really.
Yeah,
kind of water.
Quite bright, isn't it?
It's beautiful. It's just not. Doesn't speak to my heart, but her words do in a big way. I wonder if I can read you a little bit. The essence of ritual. So soul making, the structural components of ritual are woven together with your own artistry and the unique symbols that speak to your soul, creating a sacred experience and journey of remembering. This is about soul making, the expression and the integration of the juguin notion of the shadow self and your innate gifts, married with attending the river of your longing, the current that stirs your deepest dreams and desires, and the listening to the wisdom of your heart. Crafting ritual also requires you to reinstate your imagination as you guide and inspire, as you transverse invisible realms. Explore your subconscious and vision the beautiful, enchanted, harmonious world that deep down you know is possible. I guess she speaks in a lyrical way, but sometimes people write in a lyrical way and it doesn't mean anything. It's like you're just being verbose and flowery. They might be slightly similar words, but it sounds nice, but it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Whereas when she speaks, I can hear the connection in the way that she writes. And, you know, she lived in her own yurt for like a year or something through the cold winter months, through the summer months, you know, and she would go and like drum out in the wilderness, you know, and sing to a tree and, you know, she was one of the people that inspired me to write that article about when you find dead animals or where you find bones, and about actually giving them a resting space and like honouring their life. Because even on the drive here today, I went past about 8 dead badgers on the side of the road. And it just breaks my heart, because I just think people are just ploughing these animals down and just leaving their bodies on the side of the road. And, you know, they've taken that life by not driving carefully. And it's just going to sit there, and and we have such a disconnect from life. Yeah, you know, and it just it's really the sad way that she kind of honours animals that are passed over, I think, is beautiful. and it really honours the whole life-death cycle. So this is a very accessible book. You can dip into it and just read a paragraph, or read, you can read about opening circles, and drawing in the elements. And, I would just say it's a very connecting book. It's all sort of described with such gentleness as well. Because there's a whole era of being soft, isn't there, at the moment? Everyone's talking about embracing your softness. This book definitely does that, and it gives the reader space to like adapt and evolve with it and make their practice their own, a bit like what you're saying with the authenticity and the Weave the Liminal book. So, it includes rituals for letting go, renewal, grief, birth, death, connection. It's really beautiful. And she's a ceremonialist, so that really speaks to me as well. Do you guys have any personal rituals that are significant to you?
I just had a little thing. I think...
well, you said sort of like when you sit at your tree and stuff.
Yeah, and I've started doing... so I sit at my tree, and I also will cast like stones and then see where the shapes land as well. So that's something that I've been doing.
Is that sort of a new
very
practice
new that I've been doing. So I collect these stones or rocks, and I'll sit and meditate at the tree, and then I will cast the stones out and see what lands and what shapes appear, or sort of what information I get.
And are they stones that you pick up on the walk?
On the walk.
I love that.
So
you never keep them?
No. And then if you go back to my little area, because I always go to the same spot, there's a lot of stones. I have like a little pile of stones, but I've been doing that recently. I really find, I guess it is like earth-based rituals that I love. I'm becoming more and more...
Elemental.
It's funny because I really love water, anything to do with water. So...
I wonder why.
Bath rituals are quite significant for me and always have been. I actually recently have started really enjoying singing in the bath and kind of like...
I bet Stevie loves that.
So sweet. I love that.
What do you sing when you sing?
So before I did my my sound therapy assessment, I was planning to do a lovely ceremony-based one-to-one session for one of my fellow students who has Indigenous family. And I really wanted to sing to her. I don't know why.
Oh, that's lovely.
So I just, I really felt into my heart space, and I just sort of just allowed myself to come up with a melody that really resonated with what I wanted to go in with, the intention for the
beautiful
sound bath.
So no words, just like...
No, just sounds.
The sounds.
Yeah. And yeah, so the bath in general is a huge one for me, but I got into a real, when I was in Malta last year, I got into a real ritual of getting up for the sunrise and going in the sea. And that was, I mean,
beautiful.
If I could do that every day, if I lived
I can
in Malta.
see you doing that.
Well, you might one day.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Just need to convince Stevie. But yeah, so anything to do with water, really. Like, I love tea rituals as well, putting intentions into tea and water. How about you?
What are you, Toni?
Definitely singing. I mean, I think that I hadn't consciously realised I'd been doing it, but I had been trying to like soothe with singing for a long time. Like I've told you before that I sing to my plants, for instance.
Yeah.
And then when I was up with my sister and her little one, her 8-month-old baby was awaiting surgery, I was singing to her all the time, to try and soothe her of her pain. And it worked. It really did work. She's definitely very sensitive to sound in a positive way. But, I also noticed myself, like when I went to a waterfall over Christmas in Cumbria, and I was like singing to the water spirits. And then more recently, I've been kind of like walking up onto the cliffs and just kind of like singing to the elements.
To the elements of your drum.
And it's even though I've kind of been like getting little clips and stuff for social media, I'm really like not paying attention to the camera at all. Like I really find it so easy to just slip into just singing and just
a trance state.
You're in a trance,
and
yeah.
like having my hand on the stones as well, and just on the cliff side, because I just really love the cliff where I live. It just feels really good to me, and just sort of like offering my voice. I think sound is so cleansing, isn't it?
Yeah. And humming, and
that's become a bit of a ritual. So because I'm being phased back into work from being sick, I actually have Tuesdays and Fridays off. And if I wake up on a Tuesday morning and it's sunny, I'll go straight up onto the hill and I'll take my dog up there, and, you know, I'll sit and I'll have a little sing, and my dog is having a whale of a time, like running around like crazy, just off lead.
Zoomies.
Yeah, she gets the zoomies. She just is a mountain dog, you know, so she loves to like climb up the hill and down back again. And yeah, I think there's nothing I enjoy more than the ritual of walking my dog on that hill and having a sing.
that's how I feel in the woods, walking the dogs in the woods. And I realised the other day that actually some of the trees now, because I've walked on this heath for like the last 3 years, actually I've actually started naming some of the trees without realising. So I'll be like, hey, big one, or like, hey, three sisters. Like I started naming like
Big one.
I call it big one. It's a huge oak. So I'll be like, hey, big one. But in my head, without realising, I've started to like become like pals with them and like name them.
I have been having like really, really strong visions of the three of us sat down drumming and singing together.
In Malta, maybe?
In Malta.
But yeah, I think it's just because we all really love to sing, and I don't think it's necessarily that we've moved away from that lead singer of a band sort of archetype, and now it's more about singing as magic and chanting and singing in unison.
Yeah,
you know. And so I've just got this real vision of us sat.
Just give me shivers.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Me too. Like sat cross-legged on the floor.
I'm going to go,
all
hey,
drumming
this is
together.
Mambo number 5.
No.
No.
Okay, you're not coming.
I'm only teasing.
But like all facing each other, like eyes closed, completely locked in drumming, and then just singing together. And I really think we should make that happen.
We're doing it. It's done.
Okay.
Forward slash.
Anyway, so
Well
this was Rituals for Life by Isla Mcleod. Sign up to her newsletter. She's amazing, and she's a completely authentic human being, absolutely not locked into social media at all or what people think of her. Like I think she's an elder. She's a teacher in a very profound way.
Amazing. I'm signing up. Oh, what should I do? I'm just having a think. Okay, I'll do this one first. Options. So the first book that I'm gonna before the other one is this is called Psychic Protection by William Bloom.
I've started this thing.
Psychic Protection by William Bloom. And why did I pick this book? I really felt I ummed and I erred picking this book, but I'm really glad I have now because, so very quickly, shorthand, I'm doing a course at the moment and I am training to be a spiritual caregiver or companion, and it is a life-changing course. It's amazing.
It sounds like you're going to become like a ghost that like follows people around.
I'm going to be like Casper the Ghost.
You probably will eventually.
So it's like helping people, again, essentially, a spiritual caregiver is just helping people find intention in their life. Regardless of if you have a spiritual practice or a religious practice, it's just helping people find meaning in their life, essentially. And again, your authenticity, your unique path to that.
A lot of authenticity today.
I really hate that word.
I don't know how to say it.
It's really like wrapped into
your
like
true like self in it.
I'm not sure if that's better.
I don't know, I quite like that.
Your true self in it.
But the reason I thought this would be amazing, so it's written by William Bloom. William Bloom designed the course that I'm on. He is incredible. He's tried everything in the sense of if he had a spiritual platter and it was laid out before him like a banquet.
Charcuterie board.
It's like a charcuterie board, yeah.
I can never say that word. I don't want to say it again.
Charcuterie.
No longer talking into the mic, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
Into the side of
I'm
it.
just talking around here.
I would say charcuterie.
Charcuterie.
Catoucherie.
Charcuterie.
I don't know what I said.
Don't ask me.
But he
Cheese
has
platter.
looked into everything. everything, witchcraft. He lived up a mountain in India for 2 years. Like, he's amazing. I just absolutely love him. And what I love about him is he embraces everything. And he has these things called compassionate dialogues as well, where he talks to everyone in the spiritual world. He's talking to Rebecca, I think her name's Rebecca Beatty, who's written a couple of books. He had her on.
Some of her work.
The Seed Sisters he had on. So he does these. Anyway, he's just amazing. And the reason I love his work is because it's all practical. It's all practical. So the way he writes, it's so helpful. It's so practical, and it's really like bite-sized information, but you really understand what he means. So this is called Psychic Protection. And I think for witches, we've spoken about this before, I think psychic protection is really important. And this is probably a little bit light-leaning work, but the practical element of it, I think, is so helpful. And as I say, it's so clear. It's so, you can just understand what he's saying. And he just goes through all the different things from grounding that we all know and love. Talks about what a blessing is, all sorts of things. He's got little diagrams in there. There's just so much in here, but it's just the way that he speaks and delivers it is just so amazing. And I just really loved. I think this is one bit that I really loved here. So he's got this little section. It's called the benevolent energy field of the universe. The universe is also filled with vast energy fields of love and goodness. Yes, of course, there is negativity and a whole range of unpleasant atmospheres created by humanity over thousands of years. But human beings are only tiny part of the universe. Our own clouds of negativity are tiny compared to the vast oceans of unconditional love, wisdom and ecstasy which permeate the whole universe. There has never been anyone who, on connecting with the energy and consciousness of the universe, has been depressed or upset. The universal mystical experience of the cosmos from every religious tradition and culture is one of love and beauty. The energy field of infinite space and all its levels of being is something we experience as love. And I love that because the sort of the unity of it, that it is for everyone. So this book, I think, there's so many books on psychic protection, but I think he goes through all the different things of being in maybe an uncomfortable or intimidating situation, or you're with, you want to protect yourself from someone in your family or sort of passive aggressive personalities. You want to cleanse your home, your workspace, create positive vibrations for people. So it is just and it's very small as well, but it's just a brilliant practical guide. And he's amazing. If you can, watch his compassionate dialogues on the Spiritual Companions Trust, because they're so good. They're just so good. And the way he talks to people is amazing. So I cannot recommend it enough. It's really good.
Lovely.
Nice. Wild card.
Left
Did you
field.
want to...
Should I do this? Yes, I'll do this as well.
Shout out your next one.
So, we were gifted a lovely book. It was very exciting.
As well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So this is the Advanced Shadow Work Method, and it is Courtney, I hope I say this right, Kaiser, and her team. I think there was a team with Courtney as well. Courtney is a shadow alchemist and trauma specialist, former trauma psychotherapist. And this is a modern holistic approach to healing trauma and building self-love. And I've just started reading it. So I'm right really at the beginning of it, but it's a very interesting book. And it's just going through the start of the book, actually, is just sort of giving you a breakdown of glossary of terms. So it goes through the Akashic records and what it means, ascended masters and teachers, boundaries, etc., chakras, what it all means. So there's a sort of glossary at the front, which I've started. And then I'm just going into the first chapter. But it looks, I mean, she looks badass as well. Look at Courtney.
Legend.
Yeah, she does.
She looks really badass. You look badass,
Be part
Courtney.
of our crew.
We love it. But it just looks really amazing, and I'm really excited to read it and explore it a bit further. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney.
For gifting it to us, Courtney. It's really kind of you. So
we love to be gifted books.
Yeah, we do.
As
we like
book
that.
nerds.
So yeah, thank you very much. I look forward to reading that. Thank you.
Lovely. So my next
Book
set
is
of
a collection.
Basically, I got confused and I was like, I just want to bring them all. So I'm just going to go through them because some of them I'm just going to mention. I'm not really going to. Obviously, these are quite specific. So they're both about Italian folk magic. So if you've got Italian ancestry or you are Italian, you may find these very interesting. So it really goes into the practice of Italian folk magic, and a lot of it is based on the kitchen, funnily enough.
Hey!
Kitchen witchery. So yeah, they're both really interesting. So I definitely recommend them both. And they go through all sorts of different things. There's loads of recipes in them, and especially in the Ruse Kitchen Witchery one. So yeah, the first one is Italian Folk Magic, Ruse Kitchen Witchery by Mary Grace Farren. Hopefully that I've said that name right. And the second one, which is, I absolutely love the black.
Yes.
Very stylish.
Gilding? Is it
Gilding, yeah.
The World of Italian Folk Magic by Rose Insera. Magic and Herbal Cures from the Wise Women of Italy. So yeah, both really, really good books. There's spells in there, talks a lot about the evil eye, obviously, different rituals. So yeah, both good books. So I'm going to leave it as that because I don't want to go into too much detail about them. Because obviously they are quite niche. Interestingly, actually, to shout out Willow again, we had a conversation about how Italian folk magic is quite similar to Irish folk magic because of the connection to folk Catholicism, which is basically a lot of what the Italian folk magic practice is based on. So the Italians would work with saints yeah. Really good books.
Cool.
Have you read both of them?
I have read both of them.
Anything else?
Don't ask me to remember both of them. I do remember, actually, I can't remember which book it was in, but it may have been this one, but talks about the connection to... They talk about their connection to animals and specifically crows, and how we would normally fear seeing a crow as a bad omen, but how they turned their relationship around and actually crows became like a really good pal.
I love a crow.
And followed her from home to home, basically.
Oh, wow.
And used to see them all the time.
It could be the sign of the Morrigan. It's not always, Meggie, is it?
Yeah, but I think often a lot of people
they are,
assume
yeah.
that it's a bad omen. I can't remember which book that was in. I'm sorry. I do think it was this one. But yeah, I just think if you're interested in sort of Mediterranean witchcraft practice, these are really good ones to dive into. But also I just wanted to mention that I've also been buying a lot of folklore and mythology books, and I just wanted to say, don't be afraid to jump into some like antique vintage books in your own heritage and explore the folklore. I've got 2 of these Maltese folklore books, obviously different ones that aren't in print anymore, and I've actually just found a couple of other ones that talk a lot about the medicinal plants, like wild plants in Malta as well. So really interesting. But there'll be loads of, like, whatever your ancestry is, there'll be loads of different folklore books like this that you can dive into. I'm sure there's loads on New Zealand that you probably could find, but they're so interesting. And I think obviously, like, it's great that there's the Italian folk magic books, but there's no Maltese folk magic books. But I can draw a connection, obviously. I mean, I have Italian ancestry, but they're such close countries that there's definitely loads of similarities between the way that Malta and Italy would practice. And there's so many different connections across the Mediterranean anyway, Greece and there's so many countries that the evil eye is a huge prominent thing. So yeah, anyway, what I was saying is it's just, folklore books, really, really good you can get some good stuff out of them. I absolutely adore, if there is anyone that is a Maltese witch out there, please follow me on Instagram and connect with me because I'd love to talk to you. But this absolutely blew me away. The Maltese Bestiary by Stefan D.
You have to do this.
Yeah, you have to do it.
I think he's got another book called The Maltese Mythology as well, which I haven't got my hands on yet. But yeah, I got loads out of this book, different rituals and things, and yeah.
Amazing.
So the reason why I bought these books is I think it's just such a good idea to dive into old folklore books, because you can really start to paint a picture of what a practice may have been like. So yeah, that's all of my 4 books.
I love
really
it.
Sped through. But I didn't want to take up too much of your time.
I bought that Irish folk medicine book that you told me about that Willow recommended you.
Willow, you've been shouted out so much.
Yeah, I hope you get some business or something from this. And it's got some really cool stuff in it, like using cobwebs to like heal wounds and stuff.
I still haven't bought it actually. I'd love to buy it.
I can show you it. Yeah, it's really cool because I have Irish ancestry, fairly recent as well, from County Mayo. It's been really cool to read. It's very interesting.
Ooh, I'll read that.
So 3rd book for me is, I guess, my wild card. So this one's called, I love the front cover of this.
Yeah.
This is called Sacred House by Carolyn Hillyer, where women weave words into the earth. And it's got this gorgeous, almost like Nordic style, set up, around a hearth right in the middle of the room. And it's just totally gorgeous. And the back of it's like tapestry. It's just everything about this book has been really thought out in a very beautiful way. It's even got these beautiful kind of like, what do you call these? Almost like cave painting. I think it's probably, again, more like tapestry, but like on the corner of each page. But I would say Sacred House is like a evocative, lyrical, deeply personal exploration of how the home can be physically and spiritually sacred. Like it being a sanctuary, a ritual of ancestral connection. And she kind of talks about living with the spirits of the house, which obviously speaks to me because I hate the idea of people smoke cleansing spirits out of homes. I've banged on about it enough, but I really do think that homes are liminal spaces. They're places that we exist in for a small period of time. And her work is really about weaving folklore and ancestral memory and intuitive practice, encouraging us to see our homes as like a deep place of ritual and relationship with the unseen. And it's beautiful. Let me see if I can share some of her kind of lyrical writing. There's so much. It's almost like she's singing all the way through this book. We are travelling in moon waters. We are flowering in moon waters. We are growing in moon waters. New women in moon waters, standing at holy doors. Open up, and we shall enter. Standing at holy doors. Open up, and we shall enter. Honour to our mother's blood. Honour to our sister's blood. Honour to our own blood.
Wow,
that's called Bloodflower.
Beautiful.
But this is the kind of stuff that I just like adore. Like I love the.
I can see all the kind of poems or
they're
songs
kind of like this. It's almost it really does feel like she's singing through the book, and she is a I think that she uses music as a healing modality. And she is on Instagram, and she has like a cool barn in her garden where she like makes artwork, and there's lots of clips of her like going out into the land outside of her house and like taking her drum and singing and stuff. It's lovely. But the book kind of goes through things like how to cleanse and consecrate and honor the spirits of your home, the presence of spirits and guardians within our home, and how to like build a relationship with them, rituals for protection and grounding and harmony. And, again, seasonal cycles, which I really love, and the role of women as keepers of like home magic. So it might actually be quite nice for you as well, because I feel like that kind of blends in with Italian folk witchcraft as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It's all about the home. So I guess for any like half God, I really want to say hearth every time that I read it. Hearth Witches out there. I think this is a really beautiful
amazing.
book. I think there's a bit of a theme going through my books. They're all kind of very ceremony based, but there's also some beautiful imagery in here.
Oh, wow.
Almost like Native American, really, isn't it? But she's an amazing woman. She's a really, really interesting creator. And yeah, this book feels like a piece of art.
That looks good.
Yeah, it does.
Cool. Yeah, amazing.
I don't
There
know
she
if
goes.
You probably won't be able to see
The
from
drum.
over there. Yeah, the drum is heavily featured. There's some titties,
Wait.
wild hair, and again, kind of ceremonial dress, I guess, for ritual. It's just a beautiful book. And this was actually bought for me by my friend Meg when she was in Glastonbury, because I think I sort of was like, I really was searching for different kinds of books. I wasn't looking for... I think what I like about your last book suggestion is it's not like a obvious witchcraft book. It's like, for me, when I listen to Robin Kimmerer speak, braiding sweetgrass, that is the most connected I feel to my witchcraft when I hear her talk about reciprocity and plants and the land and how she, community and stuff like that. That is when I feel most connected. She just has a beautiful voice, like Isla does. You can just see that those people are, let's use that word again, completely authentic. They're not doing it as a show. They're not trying to make themselves priestesses, or they're not trying to create an aesthetic on Instagram. They actually live and breathe and bleed this stuff in a very wholehearted and nurturing way. And I have been searching for my elders recently. That's what I feel like is missing in my practice, because Steph and I have to spend so much time being the ones that are doing the teaching. Maybe teaching isn't the right word, but the sharing of knowledge, I guess, which often means that we're having to do lots and lots of research and figure out, what we think about things first. But we also need to have elders. We need to have people that we look up to that, can share their wisdom and their teaching with us. And I haven't really found them yet. So I feel like all of these people have elements of that in their work.
Could you maybe reach out to them?
Yeah, I mean, I have thought about it. I'm still not sure what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work that out at the moment.
Yeah, just figuring it out.
Definitely going through a big shift with my witchcraft. We've kind of been talking about it a lot recently, about just been feeling a bit of a disconnect with the word witch, just because of the consumerism side of it, and just feeling very drawn towards the shaman stuff, actually. The shaman work, shaman, I don't ever know how to say that word. Because of the ceremonial side of it, which is what's really important to me. But yeah, I don't know if you two feel this way, but I feel like I'm searching for someone, and I don't know who that is yet.
I completely resonate with what you're saying. I feel like I'm on a quest. I think I've said it to you before.
I feel like I'm searching for some sort of connection with my ancestral home. I'm not going to say Malta again. But yeah, some sort of connection.
To land or to people or to...
It would be nice to have connection with people.
Yeah.
And maybe an elder in that respect. But yeah, I'm definitely searching for more answers.
Yeah, I think...
But I've started to piece together more of a Mediterranean witchcraft practice now. I would say. And the reason I use the word Mediterranean rather than Maltese is because I obviously have the Italian ancestry as well, and I feel like I'm, and I'm pretty sure that my line is starting to go into Greece too.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah.
So I
feel similar. So like both of you, and like we have discussed on it, but this quest for answers and truth and authenticity, but also I think having been inspired by both of you to go back and look at my sort of my Maori side, and then the Celtic side, the Scottish side, the Irish side, there is this, similar to both of you, like a quest to find the answer and what really resonates. Mine always comes back to land. Wherever I look, from the Maori side to the Celtic side, it's all about the land, which I find really interesting, which is why I think I feel so at home there. And I feel like that I'm, like you were saying, like a tree witch, like an earth witch. I sort of feel like that's the route that
I
I'm
definitely think you're an
going,
earth.
and very much an
earth energy, yeah.
Earth-based human. But I think, like you, there's a shift happening with same, and also I've gone just down a Reiki route, Pendragon Reiki route as well. So again, similar. There's this shift, and there's a quote that I love. It's from a poem. I can't remember the poem, which is, "I'm out with lanterns searching for myself," and that's how I feel at the moment. Like I'm sort of out with a lantern.
It's a constant journey, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's never
exactly.
Everything always evolves. You don't just stay in one place.
Yeah,
I think that part of it is like, I don't necessarily feel held, and I feel like elders do that for you. In a place where you feel completely safe. I feel like the role that I'm in at the moment is quite exposing, and I'm under scrutiny a lot of the time, especially on YouTube, you scary YouTube people. But, then I'm craving a place where I have elder women around me that I can kind of almost like cry or, like shout or, and just feel completely looked after and feel like emotionally safe. And as much as I've been craving going and like doing those ancestral trips, I feel so excited about the prospect of like looking into your ancestry and going to your place of ancestral heritage or whatever, because I get as much enjoyment out of seeing your connection as I would going to Iceland or going to Ireland for myself. And so I feel like it's just connection to the land in general, like the earth. I feel like I'm feeling very drawn towards indigenous cultures and learning about how they've lived for centuries and their practices, and how we've become so disconnected by convenience and consumerism. And I'm just rejecting all of that stuff now. I just don't want to buy anything. I don't want to, I don't want to buy products. I don't want to buy processed food. I don't want to buy processed, fragrance and stuff like that. I just want to live much more in connection with the environment. So I haven't found anyone like that in the UK yet, so.
Part of your quest.
It's part of my quest, yeah. But that's what I'm feeling, the
shift.
That's what I'm feeling like the work that I need to do. Yeah. The
Yeah.
shift, I think, is more like a shift in identity and voice and, you know. But it could just be something that we're all experiencing right now.
Yeah.
I just feel like something's changing.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Something's changing.
Something is changing.
The wind is a-blowing.
But I think, yeah, like it's like
there is
what
a
we were
big
saying.
shift in the from an astrological perspective.
Yeah.
There is a big shift. I think we've come to the end of a.
Yeah, we're just going now into Venus in retrograde, which apparently is going to throw up.
I was talking about the end of I can't remember what it's called now. If Leonie was here, she would know.
Leonie,
where are you? It was like the Capricorn something. Was it Pluto?
Oh yes, yeah. Something.
And Pluto's now going into Aquarius.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, Aquarius season, isn't it?
But obviously this happens.
No, it's not Aquarius season. We're going into Aries season, aren't we?
No. So that's the sun.
Yeah.
But Pluto. Obviously, that only happens.
Yeah, it changes course
over like 10 years.
Yeah.
We're not making any sense right now, by the way.
We're just trying to work it out.
We're just blabbering
you
on.
You probably know better at home.
Something's happening, astrologically.
Something has happened, but there's been a big shift, basically.
Yeah.
So,
well, like maybe it's like a Saturn's return type thing. Maybe it's more a phase of life shift that I'm feeling.
We are.
Yeah,
approaching.
No, don't say it.
Hot cup
40s.
But I think what we might be going through, which is what Sharon Blackie talks about, is you're just endlessly reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that feels to me like Madonna reinventing her outfit. You know, I don't think I'm reinventing myself. I think I'm refinding myself.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
I don't feel like it's a reinvention, because reinvention feels aesthetic, you know. Or like,
that's true. I know what you mean.
That word doesn't work for me. I feel like it's a deep remembering.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm hearing the voices of all these women from the past in particular. And having lots of really visceral experiences. Like, you know, I had this sound bath and I went there wanting to connect with a particular ancestor, and I had this very physical feeling of someone holding my hand like this. My hands were like on the floor, and I felt both of my hands like being gripped like this. It was really powerful, and it was like a, you know, you're held feeling. But I guess I'm searching for that on this plane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not so much I think spiritually I'm sound, but like, well, I'm not sound, but spiritually I feel safe.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like emotionally in this physical space, I'm not feeling safe. Mm-hmm. I feel like my opinions aren't safe, and
yeah, can understand that.
I mean, I know what you mean. It's like, especially when you're constantly leading, and also you've done a hell of a lot of ancestral stuff recently, like worked through some real
intergenerational trauma.
Trauma.
That was a massive big can of worms. It's really fun.
So I mean, you've really gone through it recently. So
yeah, and also recovery from, you know, being super sick as well. It's but I'm not meaning to make this about me. I just mean I'm feeling a shift happening.
But I think you're right, and I think there's so many people that I speak to who are equally feeling it. So there is definitely a shift taking place.
It's like with all the, you know, we're constantly bombarded by all this negative news, and I feel like it really affects you.
Yeah.
And so I'm finding myself really drawn towards reading positive news, because I need to know that there are good people out there doing good work.
Totally.
Anyway, this book's really good.
Yeah, this book's really good. And this one.
Sacred House by Carolyn Hillyer.
Being a bit of a tangent there.
Well, but I was starting to get emotional, and I was like, I'm going to nip that in the bud and not cry.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Amazing.
Big
Such
episode.
variety.
Yeah, loads of variety. And I think we have come to the end of our
fan them out.
Bookshelf. Are you going to do a tour of the books again?
Steph can't hold all of her books.
No, I brought too many. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Witch's Bookshelf. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you got some books that you may want to take away and read yourself. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. If you've read any of the books we've mentioned today, or if there's any that you'd like to shout out to us off the back of what we've talked about today, we'd love to hear from you. And yeah, thanks for joining us for another episode of Embracing Magic.